to where I am now 12 years later, what is the one thing that really helped me get out of that? And that is really community. So really people believing in the value that I had as an individual and realizing and believing that I still had to grow into something.
Okay guys, welcome back to another Ivy League Mindset. We're here with Nick.
What's up?
You're gonna learn a lot about him. He's a great guy, jiu-jitsu master, former b-boy.
Yeah.
And I believe you're an influencer through your actions and your growth. So we'll talk about that though. Before we get into our main topic, can you talk a little bit about yourself, where you came from and everything?
Yeah. So my name is Nick. I am a Dutch native, so I was born and raised in the Netherlands, in a very small town called Zierikzee. So it's a fisher's town, like population 10,000 people.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been like a wonderful journey. I've been very fortunate enough to travel different places. I came to Canada initially in 2008.
2000. Okay.
To study.
Years ago.
Yeah, so
12, 13.
Yeah, I studied at Fancher College for a little bit. And then about 7 years ago, I immigrated to Canada and I got permanent resident status, and now I'm here. And so I'm very much enjoying kind of the journey. And some of my stories, they involve dance, and some of my stories now involve jiu-jitsu, and so it's been a remarkable journey. So
how do you find the difference between the Netherlands and here? Like, do you really like it here?
I do. For multiple reasons. I think the biggest reason for me is that in Holland, especially now, there's a lot of divisiveness in community. And I was really raised with a very open mindset that talked about, how do we cater to a majority of people, like just people in general, and how do we cultivate relationships of all? Like really, that's one of the pieces that I grew up on. And I felt that shifted a lot in kind of like the recent political developments and climates. Whereas in Canada, that is also happening to some degree. However, I never feel like an outsider or not accepted in community, even if that means I'm in a community where I'm the only guy that looks like this. Yeah. Right. Sometimes I'm on the bus and then people from like Colombia and like
so diverse, eh?
Different Asian countries and the continent of Africa. And I never feel weird about it. Now maybe that could be my skin color or my gender, sure. Yeah. But I never feel like I always feel like it's like a melting pot of cultures, and everybody like respects each other.
Everyone belongs.
Everybody belongs. That's the word I'm looking for. Everybody belongs, and I enjoy that, right? Yeah. And so, a relatively young country, 151 years old. So really, still trying to find identity, still trying to find culture, and I feel that we are really doing that together. At least that's the way I'm experiencing community. So that is one of the major pieces why I like it here. Now, I think you can do an entire podcast just on some of the stuff that I don't like, or like some of the discrepancies or differences. But I've been very privileged to be here in this country, and also to have found some acceptance and just a place in community where I belong. So
it's cool to hear you say that you feel comfortable here and that you belong, and you haven't always. This is a good segue into our topic actually. So you haven't always felt that way. Can we talk about a little bit, because you have some strategies to battle a little bit of your mental game, loneliness, and we can talk a little bit about addiction. So sure. Can we get into that?
Yeah, let's do it. So where do we start? I think loneliness has definitely been a part of my life for a very long time. I could be in a place filled with people. I could be in a room filled with people at a party or at a conference, and I would always feel super lonely, like super alone. And I have this theory that when individuals go through traumatic experiences when they're younger, they kind of develop this concept around, I don't belong here, or there's something wrong with me, or whatever has happened to me, whatever traumatic event, like that was my fault, and so therefore I have no value. So since then, I've been on my own journey, a healing journey, a developmental journey, where I understand now that individuals have value without condition. So no matter who you are, no matter what you've done or what has happened to you in your life, you have value no matter what. And that was an interesting concept for me to kind of like learn, and also to some degree I had to unlearn certain elements that were given to me by my parents. So there's definitely like a loneliness aspect, and I think what solidified that loneliness for me is that I was about 18 years old, and my parents actually I'm going too fast. So when I was 10 years old, my parents both got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom got breast cancer, my dad got cancer in his prostate. And so that was like a very upsetting moment in time, right? So
of course,
your parents are going to die. Like I remember like walking my mom into like radiation vaults. Like that was kind of like our normal like, you know, bi-weekly activity, and like seeing like blood in the toilet, like when my dad had to use the washroom. So imagine being 10 years old. It's pretty rough. And that I remember like that being like, before that time, like I was relatively like relaxed and calm, and then after that, I remember just getting like crazy anxiety all the time, like what's gonna happen, and you know, not having any real guidance from my parents or like accompaniment on their journey. Like they had their own stuff to deal with, like past trauma, and now they're also sick. So then I fast forward, they both healed from cancer, and then I'm 18, and my dad, he gets cancer for a second time. He gets it in one of the lower intestines,
wow.
or intestine, and and this time it was fatal. And I remember holding my dad's hand when he passed away. So like,
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's tough, right? So well, more than tough. Like I really felt a part of me being quite fractured and broken afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going through that process, and like looking back at it now, that's when I realized, like after my dad died, I was like, yeah, now I'm alone. Like, you know, I didn't have a really good relationship with my mom. Like I grew up in quite an abusive household.
Yeah.
And so necessarily I didn't have those relationships. And then when my dad passed away, it's kind of like the ground underneath my feet like shifted. Like all of a sudden I had no like steady ground anymore.
Yeah.
So then you're a young adult, you're 18, you just lost your father, you don't really have a connection with your mom. Didn't have a lot of connections with the rest of my family. I have two sisters, which I have wonderful relationships with now. But at the time, that was very difficult for me. And so that's when that journey into loneliness really started. And so what I've been able to understand and learn so far is that when, like, loneliness, I think, is a very dangerous thing that's happening to our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think loneliness fosters a few different elements. One of those elements is shame. And I think when loneliness and shame are present together, and we don't kind of like reveal the different pieces that we feel shame about, then that shame metastasizes. And I think that shame then reaches a level where you have to escape from it. And so for me, the way I escaped was to alcohol and alcohol addiction. And there are many different there are many different forms that we see in our communities nowadays where that people use to escape, whether it is being violent, being abusive, any type of drug or like alcohol addiction, pornography, sex. Like there's so many different ways that I think people escape. And looking back kind of into my journey of healing and my journey of belonging, one of the pieces that I looked at specifically is like, how can I now start connecting with people? And so I'm like, right now, like we're 2020, I'm almost 3.5 years sober, like life, and I have a beautiful,
congrats, man.
Thank you.
Huge, yeah.
I have a beautiful partner. I have like a wonderful work that I do that's very meaningful. I have great friends. I have a best friend. So when I look back at that journey of kind of like 18, so almost 12 years ago, my dad passing away and me being on the ground in terms of like mental health and like spiritual health and emotional health, to where I am now 12 years later, what is the one thing that really helped me get out of that? And that is really community. So really people believing in the value that I had as an individual, and realizing and believing that I still had to grow into something. Like sometimes I look back and I got like a job offer, or like someone would mentor me, and I would kind of think to myself, at the time I wasn't really giving you a lot of value. Yeah. Like I was really just focused on kind of myself and my own like survival to some degree. But these people believed in me, and they thought, you know, this guy, he has the potential to be bigger.
That's it. Better. That's what I was going to ask you. I think that's good of the people who've seen that in you. I think a lot of people are forgetting the potential of people.
100%.
Right? 100%. It's interesting, 18, losing your father. That's a fragile age, right? Where you're trying to still figure out yourself.
No, for sure.
So
I think even at 30, I'm still trying to figure out myself.
That's a constant.
Right. It's a constant journey. But like at that time, and to be honest with you, like, in the household that I grew up in, I never had that type of support. Like both my parents are alcoholics. My mom's still alive. They have their own subset of mental health challenges. One of my big fan of, just as a little side note, is something called ACEs. Do you know what ACEs are?
No.
Adverse childhood experiences. And I did a study years back in California where they basically delineated 10 different experiences that would be considered an ACE. It could be like a relative in jail. It could be your parents getting a divorce. One of your parents or both parents are addicted to a substance. And so basically you go through these ACEs. And the more ACEs you have out of these 10, the more likely they are going to experience a subset of living conditions or like conditions to like your health or mental health. So out of the 10, I have 8. I hit like eight check boxes. So the likelihood for me to become an alcoholic or to go through a marriage that where we were unsuccessful in sustaining that and going through divorce, like all these things that have happened in my life subsequently. When I look back at that thinking, well, I hit 8 of those ACEs. And then now all these other things have happened in my life throughout. Like, yeah, that's no wonder that I went through these experiences.
Yeah.
And so intergenerational trauma, I think, is a real thing. I think our communities are suffering from that significantly. And intergenerational trauma flows downwards, right? And so the different pieces that my mom and dad did not have the tools to cope with or engage with, well, guess who got those? It was my sisters and I. Right, and so now as an adult male, whether I was at 18, like not really having a fabric yet of who I was going to be as a human being, to now, it's like, yeah, shit, now I have to deal with this sort of stuff. And so it's been, I look back at it and I think, what privilege did I have to arrive at this place? Because the majority of people, Hawk, they wake up and they think one thing: how do I get through today?
Yeah.
And here I am, like on a podcast, talking about like, oh, this is my journey, and here's some of my aspirations to how I want to develop myself and where I want to go. And I'm thinking about like maybe starting a family one day, or like what type of business do I want to set up. Like there's so much privilege in that. And so in a way, I feel like it's not like I made it, but it's just like I made it out to some degree. And I'm just very blessed and quite lucky to have done so.
Give me half a second here. Shut this heater off, guys. Sorry. So I love that. First off. It's almost as if, like, I feel the same way of where I am and the privilege to even interview you, right? So counting your blessings, I think, do you think people should do a little bit more often? Just almost seeing the positive side of things instead of always...
I think it's a great question. And I think there's a lot of power and value in saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to say I don't know because... there's something to be said about sitting in your shit. Like, today is a shitty day, and honoring the feelings that you get from, you know, being disappointed or feeling sad, and recognizing that there are no negative or positive emotions. That is just a state that you have to go through. So I'm a full believer of that, and I still do that to some extent, like on a daily basis. If I'm disappointed or sad, instead of saying like, I don't want to feel this, like, no, I want to sit in this for a little bit. And if I have to like cry about it or journal about it or do like a nice little workout, or I need to just hang out with some friends, like that is a way that I can mitigate some of these feelings that I have, right? And at the same time, I think there's also something to be said about every situation will provide you with a learning, right? And if you can remove yourself enough kind of from the immediate emotional response, so instead of being like responsive all the time, and you can kind of come back and say, you can sit back and say, yeah, there's something happening here that I can learn from and I can grow from. That is also something that we said, but I'm very careful of telling people, hey, just make something positive out of it when they're really going through like a really shitty time.
That's true. That's true. Do you think what you've been through, where people go through a lot of resistance, it creates a better character? If you can get through it, right? I know it's tough. Like you just said, you can't just say, you know, but I'm a strong believer for anybody that goes through a lot of resistance through their childhood, teen, whatever, or throughout their life as an adult, and come out the other side, it builds a better, almost stronger character.
For sure. Yeah. It's so like if we did this podcast 5 years ago, my answer would have been very different, and then I'll kind of highlight why. So I used to be one of those like pull yourself up at a bootstrap mentality kind of guys. Okay, so if you have like a black 14-year-old in inner city Chicago, and you have the Caucasian 14-year-old Nick that lives in a small fisher's town. Both have equal opportunity to get where they need to be. Whether they want to be like a CEO of a company or they want to become like an engineer. And statistically, this is just not true. And I'm kind of giving you some very specific examples, but I think it speaks to kind of like a wider argumentation that some individuals will have significant challenges to move through adversity and come out better on the other end. I actually think that kind of like statistically that when people go through trauma or adversity, they don't always come out better on the other ends, and maybe that is through lack of supports, maybe it's through a lack of understanding of what they need in order to be healthy, either like physically, emotionally, or spiritually. So like I look at my own journey and I have scrapped the like I was strong enough and special enough to move through this. It's just like I have been very lucky because many times the distance between me doing well and me like living in the gutter according to society standards in terms of like how much money I would have or where I would live or having no job or having a job, that space, people think that space is this big, but that space is very small. And so I'm very blessed that I have always been taken care of by some entity, to me that is God, right, at least now in where I'm at in my life and how I have faith, and the people that have taken care of me. Like honestly, if those people weren't there, if the larger entity like wasn't there, I would have been on the other side of the races. So
I believe something similar. But this is my take on it because I had a lot of things that I've had to get through, and I believe people are placed certainly in your life for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
But maybe you're right on. They didn't have the right situation, like the right people in place to get them above that hump, right?
And also think about who you're around. Like if the people around you all come from a place of trauma, and they're all broken as individuals and they haven't healed yet, then those people are not going to look out for you. They look out for one entity, and that's themselves. Okay? And that's how survival and the idea of safety or feeling unsafe works, really. And so it's some people, man, like I think being Caucasian is one piece of it. I 100% like believe that. Being male, I think, is a big piece of it too. And these are things that I can't deny. And that people have just at one point said, "Hey, I'm going to help you out. I believe in you. I'm going to take you to a recovery meeting, or I'm going to sponsor you, or I'm going to take a risk on you in having a relationship with you." Even looking at your track record or kind of like relationship background. And because of that, I've been able to get myself out of shame. I've been able to heal from the trauma that I've experienced and had to cope with to get to a place where I'm now, where I think relatively I'm doing pretty well for myself. So a lot of people do not have access to that.
I just want to say something about this thing too.
Yeah, of course.
So when you have a group of people, because I grew up in this is my situation, where everybody's inside the box, not doing good.
Right.
But it's that ability to look outside the box, which a lot of people can't.
Right.
So I removed myself from that situation, looked inside the box and be like, okay, do I want to end up like everybody inside this box? No, let's do something different. And it's not easy. Like that being said, that's not the norm to do that, right? But I use that skill for every single thing. Do I want to be like everybody else inside this box? No, do something different.
So I think that speaks volumes to who you are, and I think the character that you bring and the personality that you bring, and it's also very much the way I experience you in community, like the way that we've practiced jiu-jitsu together. But that is a skill set that is incredibly rare. Honestly, like not a lot of people have the opportunity to do that, and there's also something to be said about courage and bravery, because you can have a skill set, but if you do not employ that skill set in a particular situation, because you don't have the bravery, then that's a significant challenge you're going to run into. So I think just to kind of recognize you as well is that if you, based on the story that you're sharing with me, you're saying like I have this skill set, I have this ability to kind of look outside of this box, that's amazing. But that also took a lot of courage for you to do at the time, and then for you to continue doing that now. And so that's another piece that like sometimes that bravery or courage is not there for whatever reason. And so I think that's a beautiful thing, man. Like if you
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I think people go through certain turning points and then see certain people that I look up to somebody that was inside the box. And now I'm like, I don't look up to you. So then you have to, like, it gave me the opportunity to look outside the box because I didn't want to be like that. Right? Back to loneliness. Because it's obviously it's a big thing
for sure
for a lot of people, and I felt that way too, even if you're surrounded by a lot of people, right? You talked about this in another situation. Can you talk about the device or the strategy that you use?
And we can say TED Talk, man. Like that's no problem at all. You know, not to brag, just because I'm so proud. Like I did get the opportunity at Western to do a TEDx talk.
And that's massive. If you guys haven't checked out his TED Talk or a TED Talk, highly recommend it.
Thanks, man. Thanks. That's always good to kind of like promote yourself a little bit. And not for like not in a way like, oh, Nick is going to get shine, but because I fully believe in the material that I shared in the
100%.
Right?
It was beautiful.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And that was a big part for me too, because at that time people really kind of saw me as this like kind of like community change agent, like, oh, he has raised like over $1 million. At least some people saw that, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of coming forward with my own personal story that was really kind of like born in trauma and was basically a healing journey. So I was very scared. Like I was sweating buckets on the stage, like honestly. But yeah, so the catalyst that really kind of changed that for me was very interesting. So even like earlier on this particular podcast, like I talked about coming from like an abusive family. I grew up growing up in that. My parents being alcoholics, kind of coming into like going through a marriage and a divorce, having alcohol challenges myself. And so a very interesting like subset of conditions to live life through, right? Like honestly, like I look back sometimes and
that's not easy.
Like how did I make this? Like how am I not like in a worse place than I am now?
Yeah. And
so one of the big pieces that was a catalyst for me to for my life to change in a positive way is to actually stop drinking. And there was a time in my life, this was kind of like post divorce, so probably about a year, and I was kind of like running into the same barriers every time I would drink. So I would go to the bar 10 times. 5 of those are fun. I was kind of like the way that I am now, charismatic, fun, like a joke around, like just generally a good guy. And the other 5 times, like I would be hurtful to people. I would like be violent, or kind of like if someone would be violent towards me, instead of like walking away from it, I would engage with it, and I would just make decisions outside of my value set all the time, And I think you can use your imagination to what that potentially could look like.
It happens to a lot of people, but
not
often, right? It's just like once in a while, but
so
I can only imagine.
For me, like I was really trying to, and this is my experience, right? And the experience may be different for other people. I was trying to like escape from the pain that I was feeling, like some of the brokenness, some of the pieces that really shaped me when I was younger, and it's like it was just way easier to go to Joe Cool's and have a couple of drinks and kind of go from there. So, and I'm just sharing this with you, kind of set the context of what I was about to go through. And so, I would do challenges like 30 days no drinking, like 50 days no drinking, like for some of my boys, and then afterwards they're like, we're just gonna go back. And then at one point I'm just like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm part of my language, but I'm fucking up my life. Like this is really, and not only my life, but also the life of other people. Where some of the decisions I have made have really impacted people in a negative way, like really hurt people. It's not what I want to be. And so I remember going to my first recovery meeting, and this was super wild, right? So I had about 30 days of sobriety. I had exactly 30 days of sobriety, and I went to a native healing center in our city, so London. And I remember like walking in, and it was like I walked into like a gymnasium, and I had like a beautiful globe painted on the wall with like men and women and different animals. I'm thinking, AA is not that scary. I kind of like where I'm at. So basically walk into a room. There were like basically chairs in a circle. Like there's some like scary looking dudes, like biker dudes there. It's like I'm like, oh man, like I don't know, like 'cause I'm pretty big guy, pretty tough I would like to think, but that was not tough there. And also like in terms of like what I wanted to share there. So saying that I have an alcohol problem and kind of sharing with some of my peers at the time, like what I was going through. Like I cried, I bawled during this meeting. Like I was just sitting there like next to like these strangers that didn't know. I was like, what do I need to do in order to move forward with my life? I don't even care anymore.
You were ready at that point.
It's just like if I have to cry in front of strangers, if I have to do this shit every week, I'm gonna do it because I don't want to live my life like this anymore. Like I have aspirations too.
Were the people? Sorry,
go ahead, please.
The people around you that were drinking with you, were they supportive of you becoming recovered?
So this is interesting, right? And I want to touch kind of back on like the thing that has really was kind of like the catalyst. But just to answer that question, some people were very supportive, and I have grown very close to them. Other people were not supportive, and I'm not saying they were not supportive of me not like stopping to drink. But that was one of the main pieces that we had in common, was like that kind of like a party piece. And then there's another component to it, and this is just a theory. So I don't know if this is like an actual thing. This is maybe a story I'm telling myself. But I think that sometimes people, they put you in a box when they say, this is how I know Nick.
Yeah. And
so this is the definition of Nick, and I'm very comfortable with that definition. And then when you say, I want to step out of this box, I want to do other things, and whether that's good or bad, people don't like that. And it's almost like you put a mirror in front of them saying like, hey, now you're going to have to check yourself. And so I think some people got very uncomfortable with that. And I have experienced that as like non-support and maybe even like hate to some degree. And I'm not even mad at that. Like I'm not even mad at them. It's just like we were on a journey together at one particular point in time. We had connections there. I have made my mistakes. I've done some wonderful things for people. And now we're no longer on that journey. And I look back at it and thinking, hey, thank you for what you've given me. There was some lessons. So I basically lost like a lot of my different friends. At least that's how I look at it. And then also I was dancing for about 10 years at that time, and also that started my journey out, like the exit from dancing and the dance community.
Was that interconnected?
Very much. Yeah, at least this is the way that I experienced it.
Yeah.
The truth may be different for other people, and I want to recognize that. At the same time, there's definitely a linkage between how I showed up as a b-boy with like a lot of ego, and that could also just be a Nick thing. It doesn't have to be a dance thing or a dance community thing. And kind of like the things that I was trying to hide, like in terms of like my flaws and insecurities that I had, and then some of the substance that was used, like typically in the form of like alcohol or weed, and I wanted to break out from that.
Did you use that as a coping mechanism? Obviously the alcohol, but being in the community of b-boys or dancers.
Yeah, it's a good question, man. Yeah, like I think the way that I've experienced breakdancing or b-boying or breaking for a long time is really like ego dominated or ego based. Like you walk into a room, it's like I'm the baddest dancer here. Like that's really what it kind of comes down to. Yeah. Well, in like deep inside, like I was like majorly insecure, and I want to recognize there are dancers that are not like that, but that was definitely the way that I was.
Yeah.
So, coming back to your initial question, because I want to touch on this, is that so I went to my first recovery meeting, had 30 days sobriety, and I was crying, and I'm like, man, like this is so much. And there was another guy at that meeting, and he was sharing about kind of like his life and his struggles, and he was 5 days sober and clean. Yeah. Right, and so as he's sharing, I think to myself, like, why are you so weak? Yeah. And there was some other derogatory language in my mind for sure that I don't want to put
5 days
on the podcast.
Right? 5 days, yeah.
Why are you so weak? Like, why are you such a wussy? Like, essentially. And it kind of shows you the judgment I had towards people. Like, I really had this, like, I looked down on people sometimes. Like, I felt like I was at a certain place. And then a week goes by. I went to a Starbucks at Richmond and Dundas. That's one of the Starbucks I went to a lot to do, like, consulting work because I really need a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. And I'm kind of sitting there, and like when you talk about loneliness, like that was like the epitome of feeling lonely. Like that was that, and like I had really bad anxiety at the time, and there was a lot of things that were not like running smoothly in my life at the time. And I remember getting up and getting my tea refilled, and I was just like chilling there, like just not feeling good, like being away from family, and all these like racing thoughts. And then all of a sudden, this guy just like grabs me by the shoulder, and so I look back, and it's this guy from the recovery meeting. So the guy that was sharing about 5 days sober and clean, and the guy that I said, in my mind, I said, you're such a wussy, he came to me, and he said, I was walking by on the outside, and I saw you sitting here, just by yourself, and I just want you to know that I've been praying for you, and you look so much better, and I hope you keep doing well. And without even being able to like say anything, the guy just walks away. And so I had to remember, like, this is such a wild, like, because mathematically this was perfect in terms of where I was at and what a stranger gave me. And what happened is that he cultivated his courage and bravery to come towards me and say, hey man, like, we have this connection based on where we were together at one particular point in time. I'm going to show you my grace and kindness, and maybe I can do something for you. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I remember like sitting down just like baffled, and I thought to myself, the way the hurt I carry inside informs the lens through which I see other people.
That's why. Oh, okay.
And then the second piece is that I didn't feel alone. Like, that was the first time I was like, someone is like watching over me. So it started two things. It started a therapy journey for me.
Yeah.
To really kind of uncover the pain and trauma that I come from. Mm-hmm. It started a faith journey for me, and so really kind of like learning on my own with people that I trust around what can faith mean in a community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, it has changed my life, because I used to really look at people like, if you're a CEO, you're up here, you know, and if you're homeless, then you're up here. And what I've now transitioned to is kind of this idea that everybody has equal value, but we carry different weights in our community. And even if you're never able to carry a certain weight, that is completely okay, and that's why we do that together. And so it talks about, in my mind, it talks about a narrative that is about accompaniment. How can you and I do this journey together? And sometimes it's like, two individuals are on like a trajectory, and then let's say I've learned a little bit more than this individual. It's my responsibility now to look back and say, hey, how can I take you along if you want to? So instead of a narrative of us versus them, like women versus men, or like Caucasian versus person of color, it's sort of like, how can we now do that together? Mm-hmm. And that may sound fluffy to some people, but it has transformed the way that I look at not only myself and my role in the world, but also people around me. And so it's not like I don't have judgment anymore, or that I don't have biases, but I now have the courage and the opportunities to unpack those biases. So sometimes when I have a thought about an individual or a situation, I kind of go like, I need to unpack this. And that has been a very, very cool part of my journey. And it's also a journey that has brought me so much joy, has brought joy to my heart. Like, I don't have to hold on to hate about things that have happened. I don't have to be angry towards people anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm like clean of those emotions. Like, I feel it, like sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm irritated, sometimes I'm frustrated. However, the overall kind of gist or like baseline of life right now is just I feel a lot of privilege, I feel a lot of joy, I feel more grateful. And I've also been able to get closer to people around me, because that lens that I used to have around kind of like, I have more value than you, is gone now. And it has really allowed me to come closer to people. And when you come closer to people, it's really difficult to hate them. Like, if you and I like
100%,
no, so like it's just like, it's easy to kind of hate from afar. Like Brene Brown in Braving the Wilderness, one of her books, which I adore her as a human being. She talks about like, people are hard to hate up close, so move in. And so if when you kind of like look on the outside, it's like easy to kind of say like, he's dressed a certain way, or like he has a particular ethnicity, or like, but when you move in, it's like you start to learn about them and their experiences and where they come from, and like what cartoons they used to watch as a kid. All of a sudden, they become really hard to hate.
How much growth have you got from that? Because I'm a strong believer, and I remember because growing up, not privileged and not having a lot with 5 brothers and 2 sisters and stuff like that, I always used to hate on people that had a lot more than me and stuff like that. Until I embraced that people get to where they get to for a reason, and they worked hard, and now I'm happy for anybody moving, anybody getting better. And my growth, since I switched that mindset years ago, this is years and years ago, like, I just feel like I feel clean, I feel better as a person, and I feel like I'm growing at a rapid rate.
Wow. Because at the end of the day, I love that, and they're cool. Kudos to you, because at the end of the day, like, if someone is like, I got this new promotion, or I bought this like new Mercedes or whatever, for me it was like, hey man, good for you.
That's it.
I am so excited that you have these things, even if that means you have potentially more than me, or you're more successful than me. But it all comes back to expectations of yourself and how hard you are on yourself. And then the second piece is how much joy or recognition do you want to give other people for the work that they do, or windfalls that they get, or how, like, sometimes they get lucky, and just to say, hey man, I'm happy for you. Like, at the end of the day, imagine if we all switched our perspective in community like that. Imagine what the world would be like.
We'd be pushing each other like crazy.
Because then, you know what, it's interesting, because when you say that, you also talk about like a collective mindset. And so now that you have like risen or have gone something better, now I want to work hard too. So is there a way that we can do that together?
Yeah.
And so when two people are constantly like pushing each other, it's like the tide rises, so we can all rise together, and then we get better human beings. Right? Better is not even the right word, but more efficient, more healthy, etc. And that's where I think we want to go.
That's instinct. I feel like if you have, I'll use fitness as the example. When you are right beside another hungry person.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And say you're just doing burpees. Well, this person is just pushing that a little bit more, and they look at you, and then you go hard too.
Right.
Because they appreciate you with the ability to, that they know that you can do more. Right? And then you look at them. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And you both go in. Oh,
are you tired? Yeah, I'm tired too. Let's do 10 more. Okay, let's do 10 more. You do 10.
It's a beautiful thing.
5 more. Yeah.
And like you talk about community, right?
Right, but that's also the piece. Like, I fully believe that we were meant to do this life together. Like the way that we were designed with some of our flaws and the way that we live and co-work and co-play, like it's all based on this fundamental understanding that you and I we're supposed to do this together. This is how it was meant to be. And I think like a lot of humans have like lived in kind of like a tribe or tribe mentality for a very long time. That's how we have survived for such a long time.
That's it.
And so how is it possible now that we are the most lonely that we've ever been? Like there's loneliness studies, many different loneliness studies like across the world that now are delineating results that speak to a population that has felt more lonely than ever before. Right? So if you look at loneliness levels in like the 1940s or 1960s or even 1970 or 80, they're vastly different than the loneliness levels now. And what I said earlier, I fully believe that when loneliness is present, other things such as shame or not feeling good enough or thinking you don't have value or you're not worthy of certain things is very much part of that. And then because you don't have other people holding you accountable or holding you gently, sometimes because you need to, that just metastasizes and grows. And when that grows, man, there needs to be a way to let off that steam. Yeah. Whether it is through pornography or drugs or violence, like, and that's what you're seeing in our communities. Yeah. Like there's a saying in Holland called, it goes, dweilen met de kraan aan. And it translates to trying to like mop up a floor, like trying to get it to dry when there's a tap running somewhere, maybe even a tap that you can't see. And that's how I feel about our community, because I've been involved in community work for a very long time, right? And we kind of talked about this earlier before we got onto the podcast, and I really feel that nothing is really changing necessarily. I only feel that the amount of problems that we have and the density of problems and the frequency of areas or segments within those problems is only increasing. And people are doing more community work, they're being more charitable, there's more philanthropy, and
more people mopping, but still
the tap's running somewhere, right? And so metaphorically speaking, like what can we do together to kind of turn that tap off or maybe slow it down a little bit? And so I think some of the elements that you and I have spoken about as long as we've known each other, but also today, around how do we eliminate shame, how do we create connections so we can get rid of loneliness, how do we find a way to belong, how do we understand that we are valuable without condition as human beings, how can we like move in with other people so we can understand kind of like their gifts and we can honor those gifts together as we then grow. Yeah. And these are elements that I think about all the time. I just necessarily don't see a way that we're implementing that in society or at least very successfully, like on a large scale. And it worries me sometimes, man.
Yeah, and you make a good point. I think it starts with us, right? Always starts with the individual, and I love your presence and your demeanor, and
thanks, man.
And I appreciate your story too. And for people not to, they might judge you right away because they don't know you yet, right? But once you, like you said, once you know their story. But I think if we start by looking at people with potential and know that people can do better and give off that presence of, if I see you move, like, I'm super proud of you for going through all that stuff. I'm happy for you. I'm not like, whatever, he doesn't deserve it. If we start with that and we keep giving off that energy, I truly believe the next person, maybe 1 out of 10, will pick it up too.
For sure. And I think to build on what you're saying, I think there's also needs to be recognition that some individuals will just not get any better or will not get any healthier, and it's to say that is okay. And that's why me, with this ability to live life in a certain way, we have to now take a bit of responsibility around, and I don't want to say helping these people or catering towards or taking care of them. I'm not sure what the language is there, but there's a relationship there that we cannot deny, and that we have to take responsibility for, whatever that looks like. And I want to be very mindful, because I know it's kind of like a sensitive issue in the community, but at the end of the day, man, like if I ever blessed with kids, and let's say I have a child, and that child like ends up on the street, for instance, it's like I would hate for that, you know, and obviously I'm going to be there as a parent, but just hypothetically speaking, I would hate for that child to be like forgotten, or like to be like deemed without value, and so when I see people living on the streets, and in London currently in 2020, like January 2020, we see a lot of that
it's
like,
a problem,
happening. And I walk past these people, it's just like, man, like that could be my son or daughter one day, you know, and so what we permit, we promote. So is this something that we're just going to allow as a community? And I know that it's super complex. It's not like let's move them into a house somewhere. Like there's different like levels and layers of support and services that we need to put forward in order to cater towards these individuals. But at the end of the day, I feel that I don't think as a community we're taking the responsibility that we have, and that I think we need to take in order to cater to individuals that maybe at one point cannot carry weight, and maybe will never be able to carry weight. The relationship that we have is undeniable, and I feel very, very passionate and strongly that we have to take responsibility for that. And I'll be honest with you, I also don't know how. Like if I had the solutions, then I would probably talk about those, but I also don't know what the solution may be, or what part solutions would be.
I just want to say one thing about that is, have you ever, like, I'll use fitness as an example again, sorry guys. It's like helping somebody that doesn't want help, but helping somebody that does want help, there's a huge difference.
Of course.
So if we say to one of our friends that definitely needs help with their health, say, oh, you should just work out, eat better, do this. Why aren't you doing that? How come you're not doing it? Right? Sometimes we're throwing things at somebody that doesn't want help yet. I say that because hopefully it will turn around and be like that, right? That's how I feel about it. That's why I'm always open to listen. I'm always open to help. And I feel like you're the same way.
Yeah, for sure, man.
On a bigger scale, you're killing it.
I don't know, man. You know, I think every aspect of help or engaging with community, no matter how big or small you want to quantify that, I don't even think that's necessary. I think it's a good thing. Everybody, in my opinion, should do their part. And to some people, that looks like running fitness classes for people and being super successful for that, like really impacting a maybe smaller community, but very deeply. Whereas I have the privilege and opportunity to maybe like impact the community on like a wider scale, but the impact is not as deep, for instance. And so, but we're both doing our parts.
All of it counts. In my opinion, like I said, anybody moving is a good thing.
Exactly, man.
Right?
Exactly, right? And so, yeah, I think we could talk about this for a very long time, but
can we get into how, if somebody needs help, what kind of strategy can we implement? Like I know on your TED Talk you talked about the empathy walk. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So interesting, because there's a lot percolating right now. In terms of like how I kind of like engage with that or engage with that question. I think that asking for help is something we don't do much or a lot of as members of community. I think men especially. They have a really hard time asking for help, to say, I am struggling with something, can you help me? I don't know, it doesn't really happen as much, unfortunately.
It's the ego.
I think ego is a big part of it, I know for sure. But also, apart from ego, it's also how we as men stand in relationship with one another, right? And so when we talk about stuff like, do you cry? Are you a feminist? When we talk about like the way we engage with women or men, like sexually, there you kind of understand like the premise of what typical conversations are like, right? Like if I say to someone like, yo, I feel like crying, man, like I've had like a really tough week, and instead of like drinking or being violent, I'm gonna have a good cry. I'm gonna write about it a little bit. I'm gonna like read one of my favorite books. To me, that's a very healthy way of doing it now. But I think the person I was 5 years ago, I would have probably called myself a wussy. Like, what are you doing, right? So not asking for help is a big part, but it's also the way that we cultivate relationships as men together, and kind of like giving permission or platforms for men to come forward and anybody in the community come forward and to really be provided the solutions or platforms that you need in order to heal or cope with something. And I think the third piece is finding tools that work for you. right? Like I can talk about the empty walk. I can talk about a variety of tools I have in my toolbox.
Yep.
They may not work for you or people that are listening.
Okay.
I'm really finding kind of what works for you, and the only way you're going to do this by experimenting, by carrying yourself a level of vulnerability, and then putting a level of bravery or courage into the way that you come forward in a day-to-day basis. And
That's
so,
tough.
It's
so
super
tough.
tough. Like it's very easy to sit here and talk about vulnerability and talk about just be courageous and do it. No, I know from experience that's very difficult. But really just kind of keep experimenting with like what works for you. And I think actually I want to add like a fourth layer to that. I think really taking a close look at your values. It's something that I did like later on in life. I wish I did that earlier to some degree. Like what are the values that you as an individual are either built on or that you want to be built on? And so for me it's radical honesty, integrity, and intention. Those are my three values. And so whenever I move with people, whether it's like a podcast or a new friendship that I want to establish or a friendship that I want to maintain, I look at like, am I being radically honest? Am I moving with integrity? And is there intention in the way that I do things, in the way that I design things? And so that has been a very interesting journey, just learning about who am I, like what am I about? And so kind of those four pieces I think can really contribute to, at least to me, and for me it can contribute to a healthier way of living, and then also like a more authentic way coming forward and just being easy with yourself and comfortable with yourself. So
I like that you break down where you want to be and how you want to be into rules for yourself to, I feel like everybody, it's like a law for yourself. When you create that law for yourself, you have to follow
I love that, man. I love that. Because human beings, they thrive on structure.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned in recovery and in the recovery community is that without structure, I have nothing. Yeah. So like, I'll give you an example. Like in the morning, I wake up and I divide 1 hour into four sections of 15 minutes. I do a 15 minutes meditation and prayer. I do a 15-minute stretch. I do like 15 minutes of like the hair, the beard, and like brushing your teeth, and then I do 15 minutes of like packing my bag and just putting clothes on and getting out the door. That is something that I follow every day, no matter what. Yeah. At nighttime, I go around the block of fatigue, like in my little flip flops in summertime. Like I walk, I kind of like slow my brain down. I do like a little like mindfulness, like meditation, a little candle, and then I go to bed. So my sleep is always great. The way I come into the day is great with great intentions. I'm grateful and thankful for at the end of the day and ask for another day. And so when you do this on a daily basis, it becomes part of you, and it allows for you to kind of, the bullshit in the world is a bit more palatable then. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like honestly, man, like if you look at what's on our TVs, what's in the news, if you look at like kind of the political ecosystem and climate right now, like there's a lot of like tough stuff that is happening, and so that is the stuff that you have to face on a day-to-day basis, apart from your own individual challenges or kind of challenges in your direct hemisphere ecosystem. And so kind of like preparing yourself for that, like kind of like I see it as like a knight, like I'm kind of like with the like meditation put like on my armor and like all my different pieces, so I can come forward and be in proper relationship with myself and also other people. So what do you? I want to before next thing, what do you do? Like, do you have any type of like structure or like rule set?
Yes, lots of notes. And one thing that I share with everybody is that I plan ahead, but I also want to be better at something mentally or physically, even if it's a little bit, each and every day. And I say this all the time, but I believe if you do that every single day, that's 365 days of bettering yourself. That's equals something big.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be a meter, right?
Nope.
It could be just an inch every day. Consistency, right?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Say today I'm going to be a little bit more positive and mindful about how people feel. Right? So now I can understand people a little bit more, even though it's hard sometimes, right? But that's a mental one, right?
Yeah, so do you have anything like that you can share that's like a, you know how like I have the structure of like waking up and praying, meditating, etc. Do you have anything like that structure wise that you do?
So if I do wake up with the alarm clock, I'd say certain rules like it goes off, I get up, right? What
I can learn from you, man, because I like snoozing, you know. Like
and I don't blame people. Yeah. For me, I feel like I'm on a time crunch. I don't know, it's a little bit insecure part of me, but I'm on a time crunch to get stuff done. I still feel like if I'm not doing stuff, I'm gonna fall behind. I have a lot of goals in my head that I need to get. I need to make, because I want to be a good example for my family, my kids, and stuff like that, and create a legacy that we can talk about, right?
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah,
That's
it's not for anybody else. It's for me.
Right,
and
right.
When I speak it, I want people to believe it.
Yeah, I feel you. And it's also, I love that you're saying that, like, this is for me, because especially earlier on in life, sometimes I listen to people that have like a particular like way of following rules or goal setting, and it's like, that makes me uncomfortable, like it doesn't work for me. When people start to advocate like, this is my way and you have to do it this way because it's the best way, it's like, so let me just like kind of explore, right?
Yeah.
I think
explore is a perfect word for that.
Just like I like explore and unpack.
Yeah.
Because I think in order to really understand what you enjoy, what you like, or what you're about, like you have to unpack certain pieces of yourself. Some pieces that you're not going to like. Some pieces that will make you very uncomfortable. Some pieces that will be very painful. Like, I'm not saying that everybody comes from a place of trauma, but we've all experienced trauma to some degree in our lives, depending on and based on the experiences that you've had. And some on like a grand scale of things, in my vision, might be very minor. Like, I had both my parents had cancer at age 10 when I was age 10, and then I lost my dad at age 18. It doesn't mean that someone that didn't lose their parents, or the parents didn't have cancer, couldn't have experienced something that created equal amount of trauma for them. So
yeah, minor and majors, everybody's own opinion.
Exactly. But I think unpacking that, like it took me 10 years, man, to unpack my dad's death. Like, it's a long freaking time. 10 years of like moving to different countries and being in different relationships and like trying different things in order just like not to feel the pain that I was feeling from that. And at one point, and this is what I did in therapy, and which was very confrontational for me, like I had to kind of stop and say, Nick, you need to deal with this shit. I cried more in 2 years than I did my entire freaking life. Like, from the moment I went into therapy to like quite recently, I cried more like than in my entire life, because I had to unpack it. Like, I had to feel that pain. Like, I had to feel pain for that little boy in me that like felt unsafe and that like 18-year-old that felt alone. I had to feel for my parents not having the adequate tools in order to create safety for their children, and to provide like a really good way of like accompaniment and kind of like here's a little guidebook for like the first couple of years. Like, we didn't get that, and I'm sure that they have felt that to some degree.
Yeah.
And so if you don't unpack that, then you can never really get to the place of belonging and a place of where you want to be. And this is the exciting piece. Like, because people ask me often, like, yo, you went through a pretty tough journey. Like, how do you feel about that? I said, you know what? I feel honored. I feel privileged, because I get to a place. I'm 30 years old now. I get to a place where many people never arrive to, or never want to get to, or are too afraid of getting to. And I really wish and hope that people can understand that they deserve love, respect, and kindness, that they have value without condition, and that they belong somewhere. And if they don't belong somewhere, then at least they can belong to themselves. Yeah. And when you belong to yourself, man, there's so much magic that happens, you know? Yeah,
start with yourself. Right? I'm just gonna say that I appreciate what you like, your journey and your growth and all that. I like one of your sayings is unpacking your bag.
Oh yeah. I love that one. Actually, so it's not my saying. It's I've worked with a leadership coach called Janet Fruits. She's part of a company called Horizon Leadership. This is her company. Okay. Shout out to Janet. She's like I would refer to her as like my spiritual mother to some degree, and I've worked with her in various capacities, and she was a big part of the TEDx talk that I did, and in terms of kind of like guiding me and you know, just delivering different concepts that allowed me to kind of like think about stuff. And one of the sayings that I got from her was this idea that we carry this backpack of like our trauma and experiences, right? Like expectations of other people. And it's this idea that you can kind of like look into the backpack and say, you know, this stuff, I don't really need this stuff anymore. But this stuff, I'm going to carry this forward. So it's almost like looking into the backpack and taking out the different elements that you don't need. But the elements that you do need, then you put them into your luggage so you could finally move forward. And so
That's so beautiful.
There are pieces, right? Like my dad's death, no matter how much I wanted to push that away, no matter how much I didn't want to deal with that stuff, I needed that in order to move forward. If you want to heal from brokenness, that is one of the pieces. And the image that is in my mind right now, and that I think about, is the Japanese art form of kintsugi. And kintsugi is an art form from Japan that basically looks at broken material being put back together with some sort of an alloy, gold or silver, as more beautiful. So they would break a vase, and they would put it together, and they put gold or silver in between the cracks, and they would mend it. So not only is the vase or the item stronger because now it's reinforced, it also looks more beautiful to them. And that's oftentimes how I look at it. So there are pieces that have broken me, and that I need to unpack those. I need to heal from those, and also recognize that they're part of my fabric. And so, you know, no matter what I do, my dad's not coming back, right? And so if I don't sit with that, and if I don't allow myself to feel those pieces, then I'm going to run away from it. And I've already told you earlier today that like escaping from things that bother you or hurt you or are very difficult leads to very bad, at least in my life, it led to very bad behavior. Right? And so I never want to go back there again. And so honoring those pieces was the first step for me. And like, it's been almost 12 years now that he passed, and I am generally okay with kind of like that you know, that experience and how everything went down, and there's times that I miss him. And the grief I always look at as a cycle. So like when you grieve, the cycle is very small, and so you're feeling hurt like all the time, and then over time that circle becomes bigger. And so here's the pain of where you hurt, the point where you hurt, and then the circle comes around, and then like you're hurting again, and then the circle comes bigger and bigger. And so there are still moments in time where it's like, I just raised, like we're going through like a funding series right now. That's pretty. I can't tell you about it just yet.
Yeah,
But it's pretty significant. Like we're talking like a lot of money, like multi-million dollars. And there's definitely a moment like if we would get that, where I was like, hey Dad, like let's go for coffee together. Like I want to tell you about this. Yeah. Like these are moments where I kind of like pause and just like, oh, yeah, damn, this hurts, man. Yeah. And then to also tell myself it's okay. It's okay that this hurts. It's okay that I miss him. It's okay that I'm grieving. And this is I will always grieve him. If I get married or I have kids, you know, like the fact that they're not going to spend time with him, like with their grandfather, like yeah, that like hurts me deeply. And at the same time also motivates me. It's like, you know what,
I was gonna ask you
get the most out of this experience. Like get the most out of the relationships that you have. And like I tell myself this all the time, Nick, no more time for bullshit. You know, sometimes it's easier not to tell the truth, honestly. Sometimes it's easier to, you know, not call a person back or not have that difficult conversation. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, if you want to move with integrity, you owe it to yourself to have those difficult conversations, to tell the truth, to you know, show up in a way that's authentic to you so you can have the best life possible, right? Because you deserve this. And this is something that echoes in my life all the time. Like I've written it in my notebooks. It's on my freaking wall. My girlfriend and I, we talk about this all the time. It's just like, no, you're worthy. You have value. And when you start to move from a place of value, your life starts to change. And
positive energy again, right? Towards something.
Right. And think about this. Like think about how we vote. Think about how we treat men. Think about how we treat women. Think about how we spend our money. It comes from a place of, I don't feel valued enough, or I don't feel safe, or there's a piece of me that's broken. Yeah. Look at some of the people that are in political power right now. Yeah. Why were they elected? My opinion and my theory is that they represent something to an audience that has been neglected for a very long time, and they're broken. Yeah. It comes from a place of hurt. Yeah. So man, and if you don't do anything about this, like again, what happens? It metastasizes.
They're trying to find that gold, right? To mend them together. I love that you take a step back, and this is what I find with the most people that are happy and successful. They take a step back and reflect and move forward, right? Reflecting and creating that beautiful mindset to move forward is easier said than done. Yeah. Can you talk about how important for you? Obviously, you talked about a lot about reflecting and all that stuff. How important is mindset for people in general? Yeah, to be better as a person, to be better at everything they do.
I hear you. I think majorly important. It's a tough conversation because I don't always think about like I don't. To me, it's not as like I don't know if the word is binary. You know, like you have to be better, etc. I think it starts with like I have value. If that's the place where you can start. You have value and you have worth, and that's why there are certain things that you deserve: respect, love, kindness. And how fluffy this may sound, I'm telling you that if this is the foundation that you carry as an individual, things in your life are going to be much easier for you. The way that you stand in relationships, the way you attract like mates, whether friends or love partners. And I think that sometimes with a little bit of help, you can reinforce a mindset too. I'll give you an example. Like my partner and I, Amanda, we do a strategic planning session each year. each year. And so basically we go away for like a couple of days, or we kind of just go to like a Starbucks and we kind of hash it out. It's like, what do we want to accomplish for the year? What can I give? And what are some of the things that I need in order to be successful, in order to relate to the vision that I have? And then we basically write this out in terms of her goals, my goals, like what can we give, like what do we need? And then we hang it in places that we can see it. So it's actually like behind my door when you come into my apartment.
A little bit of affirmation.
Affirmation, but like constantly seeing this is my vision. This is what she needs. This is what I can bring to the table. It constantly talks about like how can we now like kind of like reinforce one another. And so if that is part of your fabric, the way that you look at the world, yeah, obviously you're going to accomplish these things. And this is shocking to me because I do this each year. I have like a list of goals. I remember one day writing down, I want to do a TED Talk one day.
Yeah.
I just wrote this down, right? And I remember a friend of mine looking at it thinking like, yo, that's like way too much. Like maybe like do like a speech somewhere at a library, but not that shit.
Yeah.
And I said, no, one day is this gonna happen. Yeah. And I like 2 years later, I come back from a trip to Europe, and I get an email in my inbox, and I thought it was spam initially, so I deleted the TEDx email.
Yeah. And
then I pulled it back in, and then basically it was an invitation for me to speak at TEDx. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah. Like I didn't ask for this. I didn't apply for it. I didn't solicit.
Did you throw positive energy at it?
And I prayed for it, man. And like, I wanted to have that part of my piece. Like, and in a very selfish way, something like I want to do this, but also because of like when I went into the TED Talk initially, it was all about like I raised like $1.9 million. Like look at like and not like I did it in teams, but like look at all these great things that are me. Yeah. And at one point I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do a speech about another white guy being successful. Like we have many of those, right? So what is it that I can bring that's unique, right? Yeah. And so I started kind of looking at what are some of the tools I've had or that I've used that has allowed facilitation, of connection, and has allowed me to grow closer to people. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this about this tool that I have, the Empathy Walk. Yeah. And if one person can look at that and get something from it, yeah, man, I'm gonna be happy, and then we'll get way more than me just like reiterating my LinkedIn profile essentially. And so that has been like this. I think it's a wonderful journey, man. And it speaks to this idea that if you're writing this stuff down and you're talking to people about it, and you're like, these are some of my aspirations, these are some of my dreams. Also, people can kind of like come with you on that journey. Maybe they can open some doors for you. Maybe they can help you. Yeah. And so similar to what I do with my partner around like what is the vision, what do I need, what can I give, etc. I think you can also do a larger community, and you'd be surprised, man. Like if you take people along on a journey that says this is my aspiration for where I want to go, and automatically when people are really like aligned with you and they love you and they respect you, they're like, how can I help with that? That's it. Think about it. Like if a friend tells you I want to lose weight, you're gonna say, let's go, let's figure it out. You're not like, fuck it, like yo, you do your thing. You're like, okay, well, what can I do? Can I do like cook a healthy meal once? Can I, whenever we go out somewhere, can we go to more like health focused or conscious restaurant? Like you're always thinking about like, hey, how can I support my friend? That's why you're friends. Yeah. Right? But if you're not taking your friends on this like journey of what you aspire to be, then how can they ever help? It's actually crazy. I can relate to that on so many. All my close friends know. That's how I am. Like if I want something, I'm gonna move towards it, and like even though it sounds crazy or whatever, I'm gonna move towards that goal. And then they start becoming true. You're like, okay, what else can I do? Right? Yeah. So this is the thing. Like, I am very mindful of what I write down on my wish list. Yeah. Like, do I really want this? And I think that sometimes you wish for things and you don't know what it takes. You don't know what it requires. Yeah. Like, that's why they say, be careful what you wish for. I'm telling you, man. Yeah. I'm telling you, like, and it kind of speaks to my situation now where. Like I got this new job 9 months ago. I'm very young to have a position of this the kind of like size and magnitude. It's very privileged, wonderful team of people, really like all like supporting me and helping me unpack some of the blind spots I have in leadership. I'm just like, whoa, this is like way harder than I ever expected. Yep. But it was one of the items on my list. It's like I want to be of a company one day. Yep. And now I am that. I'm like, holy shit, here we go. This is a lot of work. And I feel stretched, like emotionally, spiritually, like technical ability. I'm always like, oh my Lord, this is so difficult. But I am telling you, whatever I like write down on this list, man, it comes true. But it's wild. And this is the wild thing too, because I recently reconnected with a childhood friend of mine, and he said, yo, how crazy is it that this young guy from this small fishers town in Holland has raised almost close to $2 million in Canada and has done all these wonderful things in his life. like, and now you're like number 1 in the world with BJJ for your category. Like,
That's it.
how is this possible?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And trying to give back to the people around me as much as I can.
That's it, man.
And again, like I used to kind of have this idea of like, okay, if I can live a healthy life until like 75, like tell me where to sign. Like I'll sign it right now.
Yeah.
And it has changed. It's more like, if I'm allowed to have another day tomorrow, I'm gonna make the best out of it.
Yeah.
And so really just like this motto that I got in recovery, like one day at a time, it works really well for me. And that there's definitely some planning, like where do I want to be financially next year, or 5 years down the line, 5 years down the line, do I want to plan for family? Sure, but I can never. There's no control. I don't control anything.
Yeah.
Really, it is really for me that it's my faith journey. It's just that person up in the sky. Like he controls where I go, and I'm just going to follow suit, and that's the only thing that I can do.
Yeah. Before we get into jiu-jitsu.
All right. Yeah.
I'd like to just talk about the reinforcing of the mindset. I feel like you said before about my strategy might not work for somebody else, but somebody listening, that might work for them. And that's what I feel like podcasts and just talking about it. This is a little bit selfish, like doing this stuff too, because in a way, I want to hear everybody's story because I want to keep building myself up.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But also I want to try to help whoever I can the way I know how, right? It's through these podcasts and talking to people and hearing their story.
Yeah, man. Like, if you've always had, because we relatively don't know, we haven't known each other that long, right? But
Not
the way
all,
that you
right.
speak, right, is just like knowledgeable. There's a lot of empathy in the way you move with people, and a lot of the stuff I've learned a lot of stuff, a lot from where I train, like the Submission Academy, and I've also learned like nuggets from you. Every time you put me in a submission that like really freaking hurts, which I do all the time. So I'm like, what was that? And how do I get out from it? Like, and you're always like open to sharing and stuff. So it's definitely I think an energy that you carry, and it's just a beautiful way of being like in relationship with people.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, so thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about
Jiu-jitsu.
1 year of jiu-jitsu, and this man is number 1.
Yeah.
So can we talk about how you feel about belonging to the BJJ community?
Oh shit. Yeah.
That first.
Let's do it, man. Yo, what a community. Oh, honest. So thankful. So thankful. I like leaving the breaking community, and that was such a big part of my identity.
Yeah.
I felt a little bit lost, to be honest with you. And at one point I said, I'm taking a 6-week sabbatical. I'm going to go to Southeast Asia. I have to find something there. And long story short, kind of complex story. I found myself in Bangkok, like wanting to party. And my girlfriend is like, yo, you better get to do something because this
That's
is
not the path
we're
that we're
not going to go back.
Yeah.
And I'm still a human being. And so instead of relapsing and drinking again, I flew to Phuket, where I saw like a Muay Thai like training video. You know, have you seen that video? Where like they have like a Muay Thai like camp, and if you do that successfully, they get like a full year like scholarship.
Oh really?
And so I'm like, I want to go there. And I looked up Phuket top team, and they had really good BJJ and have great Muay Thai. So I tried a Muay Thai class. I ended up passing out in the sun, like it was so hot. So I lost consciousness completely.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a sign. Like Muay Thai is not for me. And also, like, I'll be honest with you, Muay Thai is like a pain game.
Yeah.
Like some of these guys, they were doing some light sparring. And I had a bit of a boxing background, but these guys were not going light. Like they were like hurting me. I'm like, you know what? That's not for me. I don't like this. And then so check this out. My first time ever walking into, at least the BJJ gym in Thailand, I walk up and I go up to these two guys. They look pretty like mean, and I'm like, "Hey man, I need to buy a gi. Like, what do I watch for?" Like, and they instead of like giving me a hard time, they're like, "Hey man, sit down with us." And they were so open. And then I remember like getting a belt, and I walked into a class. I'm like, "I don't know how to tie this. Can you show me how to tie this?" And some other guy came up to me and they tied it for me. I'm like, "Yo, this is pretty cool."
That's
flip. Like, I don't. Yeah, but I've had some really wonderful experiences in the dance community as well. Yeah. But I don't necessarily equate that level of like generosity and openness.
As a norm.
Without ego as a norm, exactly. Yeah. And the only requirement for being part of that community is just showing up and doing the best that you can. Yo, and I got beat up, man, in Thailand. Like I'll never forget this. It's the Asian looking guys that spoke Russian that you wanted to watch out for. I got choked with my own belt by one of these guys.
Oh my god.
And it choked me so hard I couldn't swallow properly for like 2 days. Like I had pain every time I swallowed because the guy choked me so hard. I was a white belt, man. I had nothing. So check this out. So I had maybe 15 hours of jiu-jitsu training and a whole bunch of like sparring, so like rolling experience, and I entered my first tournament in Thailand, and I got second place. There's a video of me, Hawk. It's so funny. There's a video of me having like back control of a guy, and a guy that's videotaping is like, "Put your hooks in, put your hooks in," and I'm thinking to myself while I'm trying to strangle this guy, like, what is a hook?
Yeah,
Jesus. I had no idea what that was, right? So yeah, so that was kind of like the first experience, and it's been a wonderful place to kind of like build identity again, and then also like I'm 30 years old now, to find something that I have excelled at the rate I have has been really nice for just like my own like, you know, human fabric, and maybe a bit of part of that, a little bit of ego, and just I feel accomplished really.
Can I with your success of how fast you've been doing things, is that in relation with the growth that in all the lessons and growth that you've had in the past?
Yeah, I think so, man. I think so. Yeah, because I go to jiu-jitsu class not to win, I go to learn, right? And so sometimes if I get tapped or I get in a position and it's like, oh man, like I'm so frustrated with myself, it's just like, you know what, like it's okay. So
can you say that one more time so people?
Yeah.
When you say that, that's longevity. That's long term.
Yeah. So I go to jiu-jitsu class not to win, but to learn.
That's it, man.
That's it. And so, like initially in Thailand, that was not necessarily the mindset that was reinforced per se. But I was like, okay, and my coach Steve from the Submission Academy, he at one point said like, if you're training too hard, you're going too hard, so there's not a lot of longevity in what you're doing. So like you have to slow down a little bit, and so that kind of switched my mindset a lot. And it has also made it more fun for the people around me, right? So instead of like going super hard all the time, it's just like, no, like I'm going to learn, I'm going to move, I'm going to let them pass my guard, have side control, let me try to work from this.
Yeah.
So it has been a lot enjoyable for my training partners as well. Yeah. I had a mindset, man, like the mindset of vulnerability. I find BJJ is like runs in parallel with vulnerability. You know why? Because your ego says to you, you need to survive. That's one of the rules of the ego. It's like you need to survive. And so when someone has you in a position where you have to tap, if you're not tapping, you're getting hurt. You're going unconscious. You're breaking an arm, something. And so when you tap, it's the ego goes whoop, and whoop and whoop, and then there's no ego in that particular moment in time, and then you can just learn and be vulnerable. And I remember
you have the ability to like
but it's so cool, man, because like in Thailand, I remember. From the gym to my hotel, it was basically like a long street, and there were different like hotels and restaurants and patios. And so when I was walking down there, sometimes I was bleeding. I had like blue spots and like bruises everywhere in my body. Like, you know what? Like we did a lot of shitty shit, big bruises, and people could see this like, yo, this guy is not feeling right. And I felt super vulnerable, like walking just like, and these are all fighters too, right? That like train at different camps. But I was vulnerable there, and it was nice because it kind of like allowed me to come to different places in my life to just like unpack. Yeah. And now I'm this like, and then also believing in people guiding you. So instead of like Nick needs to know everything, it's just like, no, I don't, and I have teammates that can help me be on that journey. Yeah. I have a wonderful coach that can be on that journey with me, and it has resulted in like some crazy stuff, man. Like I've won gold in like Amsterdam now, like I've like in Holland I've won gold in like the States, I've won gold in Canada. I have 5 gold medals in 1 year. I have 27 or 28 matches. I've had 2 super fights already. And a lot of wins, man. And so with Grappling Industries in the beginner division for a particular weight class, I have no losses and I have 12 or 13 wins, I can't remember. And so that's why I'm on top of the division, so like number 1 in the world. So when I got that number 1 ranking, I'm like, yo, what's going on? It's amazing. So it's
that's something to be proud of, though, man. Congrats. And I'm getting my taps in now, so because when you start beating the crap out of me,
good. I'm coming, man. I'm coming. And also, just like my goal with jiu-jitsu, just to put this on the podcast, is purple belt. If I can get there, I think I would slow down a little bit in terms of how I want to learn. I'd probably train gi more because I do a lot of no gi now, and then the second one is world champion.
It's a good plan, man.
Yeah. So this year, Anaheim, California. I think December 12th or 20th. Blue belt world championships, no gi worlds. And I'm training and taking some time off right before and it's going, man. So I want to be world champ, bro. That's it. I told my dad.
Did you write it down?
I did. Actually, I told my dad once when I was younger. We watched Raging Bull. which is a boxing movie. And I said to him like, one day I'm gonna be a world champion. He's like, okay, you do your thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just been kind of like on my mind, and I think I'm just gonna give it a try. And if I don't become that, I'm okay with that. It's not like that determines the value I have or the worth I have. No, I want to be on that journey and just have fun. And that's how I go into every competition. Like people ask me, what's in your mind when you're fighting? And I tell them grocery store music. Grocery, like la la la. la. Like some people that have like a 300 theme song, like there's like spears and fire. It's like no, like I just go in. It's like I see an opportunity, I maximize it. You give me your neck or an ankle or a knee, it's like I'm taking it, and my mind is just calm. Every match I go into, calm. Even if the guy, I did absolutes, like I've tapped blue belts and purple belts in absolutes, like big dudes. And you see the purple belt, you're like, this is gonna be a tough one. And
it's gonna be fun.
And then it's like I tapped him, and then every time I tapped him, it's like there's like a jolt of energy, and I was like, whoa, how did I just, you know? And so it's all about mindset and the relationship you have with yourself. And I'm the living proof of how that like manifests itself or how it could.
I like what you said about even if you don't make it, which I'm sure you will, right?
Thanks, man.
It kind of reminds me of going on that path. Even towards that will make you how much better.
Exactly.
Right? Right before the podcast, we were doing a muscle up just on these rings here, right?
Yeah.
Struggled a little bit and then did one, right?
Yeah.
So how I always seen like the path to a muscle up, like you need a lot of pull-ups, the dip, don't underestimate the dip, right? But that path of not being able to do anything and then having enough pull-ups and dips and strength will help you get to that goal. Even if you don't reach that at this point, well, guess what? It just helped you with your handstands.
Absolutely.
It just helped you with your push-ups. It just helped. You know what I mean?
It's also a mindset that you enforce, right? Because I did I tried 3 and I was like, I'm not warmed up, I'm a little sore, it's cool in here, I don't want to do it. And it's like, no, I'm kind of excited. And plus, I look up to you in many different ways. It's just like, you know what? Like, let me show them that I can do one.
Yeah.
You know? Like, this is like one of the staples of, I think, levels of fitness. Levels of like, just being like fit in general. So it's like, you know what? No, I can do this, man. Like, stop telling yourself that you can't because you're sore X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Like, push it out. And I push it out.
Yeah.
Nice form coming back down. Man.
Yeah, that's it.
But it really speaks to one of the pieces about like that you talked about earlier around like enforcing mindset and just allowing yourself to feel something and then saying like, hey, no, I want to move from this. How can I not move with this? And then doing it. Whether it's a muscle up or setting up a business or mending a broken relationship or actually maybe cutting out a friendship that you no longer see the value from or
that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's tough, right? So I appreciate the little analogies, man.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's the moving forward though, right? You know what I mean? I said a lot of, usually I use jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
For everything. Because for me, jiu-jitsu's taught me so much about everything.
How long have you been doing this?
11 years.
It's a brown belt, right?
Yeah.
For people that don't know, I've been introduced to a concept called a hawk bar.
Yeah.
It's not fun. I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and I go like hawk bar because he's really good with the arm bars and the locks. And that sort of
I
stuff.
didn't name that, but
other community.
the community.
People are most people are scared. Yeah, that's good.
Before we close this off, anybody that you want to plug?
Man, I have so many people that I want to plug.
Anything that you want to plug.
Yeah. Ivy League Fitness and my man Hawk. Thanks so much for having me. Seriously, like I think you're doing some wonderful work in the community and kind of getting to know you in this way and kind of developing a relationship. I think a friendship. I think has been feel very honored in that sense. Thank you.
No, thank you.
People I want to plug, man. I want to plug so many people. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of TED Talks that are coming out that people in my community are doing. One of my friends, Andre Fascist, is doing a TED Talk out in Scarborough, which I think is going to be very prominent. I have a young woman that I'm mentoring right now who's doing a TED Talk at Centennial College. There's so many people. Jenna Fruits, who I mentioned, Michelle Baldwin, and Pillar Nonprofit Network, who are doing wonderful work in our community. London Middlesex Community Housing, I want to give a shout out to them where I'm currently employed. Submission Academy for all the wonderful growth that I've been able to go through and all the accompaniments and Steve, Mike, Hutch, Mandy, my kind of like training partners there. There's so many people that are just doing like incredible work. Like my friend King, who's doing whole bunch of community work. He has set up a new community association. I forget the name of it now, but it's Midtown District, which I think you should be on the lookout. There's a young person of color really doing his thing in the community, really like advocating for a particular geographical area and bringing different value to that community. My boy Mitch, Life and Leisure, great company. Check them out.
Actually, he was on the podcast.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. Yeah.
Check
so
it out.
Wonderful human being, like, you know, and really on his journey too. And I've learned so much from him. My friend Ryan Antua, who is currently in Waterloo, I'm just giving a big shout out. He just published a book, which is pretty freaking cool. In Tune with the Infinite. If you have a chance to read it, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. He's just a beautiful human being. Yeah, man. Like, I can keep going for like an hour. Like, but I think this is kind of like it. And if everybody that I'm forgetting, like, give me shit for it after, and I'll plug you somewhere. Yeah. So, yeah, no, this is great, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And you're killing it, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Till next time, guys.
Later.
Thank you very much.